time travel, it's damaged. It's like a tear in the fabric of reality. That is the scar tissue of my journey through the universe. My path through time and space, from Gallifrey to Trenzalore. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the series finale of Series 7, the lead up to the 50th anniversary of the series, The Name of the Doctor, written by Stephen Moffat and is directed by Saul Metzstein. We'll also likely as well be tackling Clarence and the Whispermen, written by Stephen Moffat, and She Said, He Said, also written by Stephen Moffat, two prequels that tie into The Name of the Doctor. This was this was the tie-in to the 50th anniversary. This was a massive deal and was a lot of people had their eyes locked on, and it was a massive event, and many details, many little elements of this story would then tie into the Day of the Doctor, Time of the Doctor, and so forth and so on, and essentially kickstart the 50th anniversary saga, shall we say. Now, this story was actually sort of leaked when, just before this episode aired, a few people actually got their copies of the DVD Series 7 Part B, or the complete Series 7, a week early in advance, meaning that some people were able to watch this story prior to its airing. The BBC actually made this like promising, please fans, if you can keep this secret, if you can keep this the secrets, the twist ending from the internet, we will reward you, and they did with The Name of the Doctor. I believe it was the Night of the Doctor, sorry. It was The Night of the Doctor that people were rewarded with, I believe. I could be wrong on that front, but yeah, so this was like a really big deal, and BBC tried their very best to not have it spoilt, and as well it had, you know, the big two, you had not one but two prequels tying to it. Well, I say two prequels. Clarence and the Whispermen basically ties into the story from the very start, explaining how a particular character came by the information that he has at the start of the story. Whereas She Said, He Says is actually a sort of sequel. Despite the fact that it's advertised as a prequel, it actually takes place after the events of Name of the Doctor, set in the Doctor's timeline, if you will. However, the way the story is structured, it's led up to a teaser, an idea of what they're talking about in the past tense, which is, of course, the events of The Name of the Doctor. So that is the main turning point. So by that, we'll tackle the two short episodes before dealing into The Name of the Doctor. So let's start off with Clarence and the Whispermen. Clarence is a character that appears for one scene in the actual story itself. He is somebody who is basically sentenced to death. He had, according to the episode, he had killed many women. He's basically the Doctor who's equivalent to Jack the Ripper. Only have a small scene, and he seemed to clearly go insane, hearing voices in his head. However, the Whispermen, these creatures that wear Victorian clothing, and they have these blank faces with these sharp teeth, and they can seem to talk to people telepathically. They basically come to him in their nightmares, in his nightmare, released to him so that only he can see them, and they basically are like, right, we can save you from hanging. We have information which will save your life. We need to get you to talk to this woman who knows the Doctor, the reptile lady, and we need you to find out what she knows about these coordinates. And they kind of put it into his brain. So that kind of explains how he has this pattern, this space-time coordinates in his brain. How Vastra got that out of him isn't actually explained in the episode itself, but that is what the story basically, that's basically the teaser, that's basically it's basically Clarence's connection with the Whispermen, the main villains of the story. And so that is kind of like an important little detail. You can live without it. Many people have. Many people don't even know that this short even exists. It only really exists on the DVD for the series, to which I own. And it's not, yeah, but it actually is an important plot line in the story. How did he get this information? How did he know about Vastra, and how does he know about the Doctor? So in that case, it's a pretty decent one. Sets up the plot point. It basically acts as an extra pre-credit sequence to the story itself. Like I said, you don't really need to watch it, but I think it's worth a watch. Now, She Said, He Said, it's actually very unique in the context of Doctor Who prequels or short stories, as it actually is technically 2 parts. Essentially, like I stated, it's actually set prior to the episode, but we're going to tackle it here just to get it out of the way for the sorts. And it's basically 2 monologues. We have 2 segments, Clara and the Doctor. And basically they're monologuing about their travels, their time together, and they confront, and they're looking around this strange room which has all their adventures, all the little details, like you see the Cyberman with a chessboard from Nightmare in Silvers, you see a mannequin from the God Complex, you see these many different costumes and machinery. One of them I distinctly remember being from the Crimson Horror. In the Doctor's one, you can actually see a snowman, which actually, I guess, ties into Name of the Doctor. And so, yeah, the first one, I believe, is, I think Clara's the first one. And she basically is talking about how amazing how amazing the Doctor is, and that you travel with him, you have fun with him, you do kind of forget these important questions like, what the hell is your name? Who are you, where have you come from, and what's your plan? Where are you going? And with the Doctor, he's basically talking about Clara and how she's this impossible girl who he's met twice and she's died, and then he's met her again. As the Doctor states, she's the perfect girl for him, only she can't remember that they've ever met. Which, yes, is cool. You know, you got that great monologue, and each actor really nails this, basically this single performance, and it's basically a bit of breaking the fourth wall, because these characters are technically talking to us, the audiences. So there's that. However, I think this is a case in point of clearly showing that Clara isn't that interesting as a person, because the Doctor only really talks about her as being part of this timeless child, this impossible girl storyline, and doesn't really talk about her as a person other than she's basically perfect. And when near the end of each monologue they get confronted with each other, Clara sees like the Doctor seriously just frozen there. He's clearly, like, you can clearly see Matt Smith breathing, but he's so completely still. It's really eerie. It's like they've actually found a way to freeze these actors, and the Doctor sees Clara as well. Again, seem to be absolutely frozen. It's really a strange image. And they ponder their question to this sort of mannequin versions of each other. And then when they walk back, something clicks in their heads as they're like, I remember, from the Doctor's point of view, it's like, I know how she came into my life. I know how this mystery started, and it all became, and it was all revealed to me on Trenzalore. And Clara's is something like, I know who the Doctor is, I know where he's been, and I know how important I am to him, and I knew this on Trenzalore. So basically stating that Trenzalore from them was in the past tense. Hence, this is technically a sequel, not a prequel, despite the fact it was advertised as a prequel. That's confusing. But overall, really great shots. I don't know who directed it, but my God, really great camera works, camera angles, and some great visual standouts. The monologues are really good. Well, Stephen Moffat is always known for writing some great monologues. But there's nothing really much to it. There's no plot per se. It's just how characters basically reflecting, basically setting up the ideas that we need to remember prior to the episode, which is why I guess this is a prequel in terms of an audience point of view, because this sets up elements for the episode despite for our characters setting up later. Does that make any sense? Probably not. I'm confusing everybody. I do apologise. But that out of the way, the actual episode itself, that pre-credit sequence, holy hell, I remember watching this story for the first time, and I remember being really excited. You know, it's called The Name of the Doctor. We knew that this was going to be, you know, the series finale. You know, it's going to tie in some way to the 50th anniversary, and it's going to leave some great marks into the franchise. But I was not ready for that. What happens? Well, I know it's literally like the first part of the episode, but spoiler warning, because we basically see these two engineers in a room, and suddenly an alarm goes off, as one of them is like, somebody's in the repair bay. Now, why would anyone want to steal a faulty TARDIS? Suddenly the camera pans out, and we hear, this is Gallifrey, in its absolutely glorious rendition of it. We basically learn this is Gallifrey a long time ago. And then we see the first Doctor and Susan Foreman as they start to leave Gallifrey. A prequel to the entire series. A prequel to an unearthly child. And we see a variation of Clara, a Time Lord Clara, basically interrupting the Doctor. It's like, Doctor, wait, you're making a terrible mistake. And then suddenly we get transported to Clara in this weird vortex as her life seemingly is splitted into 1,000,000 pieces. As we see her interact with the third Doctor from the 5 Doctors. We see her interacting with the 5th Doctor in the Arc of Infinity. We see her briefly being seen by the 7th Doctor in Dragonfire. Dragonfire is brought up. That cliffhanger is brought up. What the actual hell? We see the 6th Doctor walk past Clara at one point. We see the 2nd Doctor run past Clara as well. There's another person we see for like a glimmer, which is apparently the 8th Doctor. However, it goes so quick and you really don't see a good image of it that I can't really say. We also see the 4th Doctor as well. I want to say it's an Invasion of Time. And we get just so many little glimpses. This feels like an epic tribute, an epic collage of Doctor Who. Honest to God, that pre-credit sequence is probably more of a tribute to the entire series of Doctor Who than the entire episode of Day of the Doctor. That is absolutely mental. And then we get into the story itself after the credit sequence. We meet up with Clarence again. We're talking to Vastra. He gives her the time coordinates in his head. She basically makes this conference call in their dreams with Jenny, Strax, Clara, and another interceptant. And we get some really funny interludes with Strax in Glasgow. He's fighting some people in the bar, which is really funny, and he asks to be set unconscious, which is a great little gag. We also see Clara getting a letter from Vastra from the past, being sent her from the wait-in. Now, strangely enough, the first 2 seconds of this story has Angie and Artie from Nightmare in Silver, and at the end of the Crimson Horror, and as well, I believe, in the Bells of St. John. This would actually be their last appearance in the series, making them feel really obsolete, and it's really strange. But anyway, Clara gets this letter which has this sleeping substance which puts her in a dream, as stated by Jenny in the story. Dreams have always... I can't remember if it's Jenny or Vastra, but basically time travel has always been possible in dreams. And that's how they can all communicate. And essentially they basically discuss about the Doctor and how the Doctor has this many secrets, and this guy, he knows something about the Doctor's secrets. Whilst this is going on, Jenny sort of realises that she hadn't locked the door, and these creatures, the Whispermen, the main villains of the story, they break into into Vastra and Jenny's house. But whilst this is going on, they're waiting for another participant in this meeting up to discuss the Doctor and how his secrets are basically being revealed, and it's up to them to come up with something to stop this from happening without getting the Doctor involved. This other person is Professor River Song. Now this is a very important detail because this is actually would be the only time River Song would meet Clara in the series, so their meeting up here really makes sense as the Doctor, as Professor River Song and Clara don't actually know each other from both sides. But the very important interesting fact here is that this is actually the latest we've seen of River Song, even after her death in Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead. This actually takes place for her within the moon system in that story, and essentially she's met up with everybody thanks to the communication with the dreams, and that's kind of connecting her to the outside world. So Clara can see her in this visual spectrum as suddenly somebody starts attacking them, even their dreams, with Strax, Jenny and Vastra need to wake up suddenly as the Whispermen seem to even attack the dream world, where it's suddenly revealed that these creatures are actually part of the Great Intelligence, with Richard E. Grant. Yeah, Richard E. Grant. He reprises his role. Now, I remember being really nervous about this because this story is written by Stephen Moffat and directed by Saul Metzstein. As great as they have been in the past, they also made The Snowmen, which had Richard E. Grant in one of his worst roles. Now, this one, it's really strange. Here he's actually got a little bit more personality in his performance. Not a lot. It's still a very bleak one-note performance, but here it's actually not two things. A, it's a little bit more playful in certain degrees. There's some bits where he does give this little twerk in his eyebrow, his little facial expressions kind of hint certain emotions, certain deeds in his ideas. But secondly, he's not actually playing Simeon. He's not actually playing a human character. He's actually playing the Great Intelligence, a character that was first introduced way back in the second Doctor story, The Snowmen, and then reprised in the second Doctor story, The Web of Fear, then to reappear all over from The Snowmen and also, of course, in The Bells of St. John. And here we also get introduced to his new henchmen, the Whispermen, who seem to be made out of nothing, as they can seemingly just walk through walls. They have seen no boundaries. At one point, the Great Intelligence can actually get them to just go up to people and they can't, our crew, and they can't hurt them, and they can just put their hands through their chest and stop their hearts, which makes them a really terrible threat. I also like we don't get a really good glimpse of the Whispermen. They're always like in deep shadow, and they have these kind of eerie voices, and they don't really talk, they just have their jaws open. Apart from the one that resembles Simeon, which you basically learn is a Whisperman, but it's the one that the Great Intelligence is focusing it through. And the Great Intelligence basically takes our characters to Trenzalore as the Doctor's secret is discovered. And when Clara tells the Doctor about this, because when she wakes up, the Doctor's in her house, and he basically explains that, she basically explains about River Song and Trenzalore. And Matt Smith, that scene where he's breaking down in tears when he realises Trenzalore and he realises River Song's involvement, just, oh man, it really just gets you there. It's really great performance. And a bit where he like runs away and then he has to kind of, he's really shy, he doesn't really want to talk about it, but then he explains to Clara that Trenzalore is where he's buried. It's his graveyard. It's where he goes to die. He doesn't want to go there. It's one place where time travellers must never go. They must never, ever find themselves at their own tomb. But the Great Intelligence has taken Vastra, Jenny and Strax there, so they've got to go on a journey to Trenzalore. And we get this kind of beat then of the Doctor and Clara trying to get to the tomb. We get this great little adventure where the TARDIS won't land. It just hovers over Trenzalore, and we get this beautiful image of this decayed planet. And the Doctor turns off the anti-gravs, crashing the TARDIS onto the planet. We also see this massive tomb TARDIS, which actually is the TARDIS. The inside is actually leaking into the outside, so the TARDIS is bigger. Really great concept. You've got this graveyard where depending on what your rank is as a soldier gets your highest tombstone. And because the Doctor's tombstone is the TARDIS and it's been growing even after he's dead, that has some really great metaphorical subtext right there. But, you know, he is this great and bountiful, high-ranking soldier. And that really ties into the ideas of the cliffhanger and as well as the 50th anniversary. And so when that's happening as well, Vastra and Jenny and Strax, they have this little encounter with the Great Intelligence. We basically learn that he is the Great Intelligence in the story. I'll explain that later. But we get some really great dialogue from the Great Intelligence here, which actually kind of makes up for the absolutely horrible performance and dialogue in The Snowmen. There's this great moment where he's basically explaining how the Doctor died. There was this war, this blood-soaking war. It was not the Time War. It was nothing as brutal or as dark as that. But it was enough that the Doctor's heart just couldn't take it any longer. And he died from just the pure guilt that he had suffered from this war. And the Great Intelligence basically explains that the Doctor lives his life in darker hues, days upon days, and he will have other names: the Beast, the Storm, the Valiard, making the time that the Valiard is mentioned in the televised run after the Valiard's first appearance in The Trial of the Time Lord. So that has some huge ramifications, basically reasserting that the Valiard is still coming. It's still there in the shadows of the Doctor's future. So that's really cool. And, you know, that's the main built-up, the scenes between the Doctor basically going to his tomb, and our characters there basically waiting for him, and Solomon basically reveals that the Doctor's tomb, the way to get to his body, there's a door that's locked, and the only way to open it is a word, the name of the Doctor. And so that's basically the dilemma of the story. And we get some really interesting scenes in the catacombs where the Doctor and Clara, they talk about River Song and how she is actually the Doctor's wife, who died, and that and then this is where it's revealed that this River Song is actually from a distant future. And so there's so many elements. There's also a bit in the TARDIS's lower decks where it makes Clara remember things she shouldn't have. And she actually remembers a confrontation that happened in Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, and her big question is like, how can she be the impossible girl? How can she died twice? What the hell is the Doctor on about? But the Doctor just kind of ignores it and is just like, come on, we need to get upstairs. We need to find Vastra, Jenny and Strax and save them. However, it seems to be all too late as the Doctor basically confronts Solomon. I absolutely love the scene where it just goes really quiet. There's not much music. And the Doctor goes really straight. That quirky persona of the 11th Doctor is gone, replaced with this determination to do the right thing, as the Doctor and the Great Intelligence comes face to face again, and the Great Intelligence essentially just asks the Doctor what is his name, and we get this silence, and we get this bit where he grabs his face, and the Doctor just like pulls his arms around, and there's this eye contact, this pure resemblance of strength there. It's a really beautifully shot scene. Whether this was what Dorian was mentioning, it's like this is when the question shall be asked on the fields of Trenzalore. where nobody can be failed to answer the question. Because if so, that's a cop-out, because the Doctor didn't get to mention his name. The name was actually named by River, and because at the time she was this ghost, nobody actually heard her say the Doctor's name. And that's how the gates have opened, leaving into the finale element of the story, where we essentially learn that Time Lords, when they die completely, when their bodies decay, they don't actually have a corpse. Instead, being a time traveller, they have this kind of tier, this fabric in reality, where it basically contains every single moment in their history, their own personal timeline, basically manifesting. And the Great Intelligence uses this as a great opportunity to walk in and basically infect the Doctor's life stream overall. Now, at this point, it does become pretty obvious what's going to happen. I mean, we have a character that's met the Doctor throughout his timeline, especially we've seen at the start of the episode. So we know exactly what's going on. But the story does a great job of keeping the intrigue. We know what's going to happen. Even Clara knows what's going to happen. But it keeps us edge in the seat. It keeps us just tiptoeing a bit forward onto the idea, in case there might be a change of mind, in case the Doctor, maybe even River Song, can convince her not to do it. And that is the fun of it. Now, Jenna Louise Coleman is absolutely phenomenal here. She's a fantastic actress. However, throughout Series 7, she hasn't really given much to do, with the exception of her pre-modern incarnation, and as well her stories written by Neil Cross. Clara hasn't actually had a character per se, and here I feel like the same has happened as well. But the fact that there are some beautiful moments with Clara, like this scene where she basically realises what she must do. She already knows that it's happened, that she has to step into this tear and save the Doctor from his timeline. And even River Song is just like, you can't do it. It will basically kill you. It will separate your existence in an echo, scattered into a million pieces, living and dying throughout history, but none of them will be the real you. But she's like, I don't care, I need to save the Doctor. And when she goes into the vortex, she saves the day, and she gets transported into this weird realm where her mind is basically collapsing in on itself, and she sees multiple incarnations of the Doctor just run past her. As the Doctor, Jenny, Strax, and Bastra are now completely fine. But the Doctor does not want to leave yet. He still wants to save Clara. And then we get this really great moment. One of my favourite scenes, my favourite scene is the scene where River's just like, no, for once just listen to me. For once just, and she tries to slap him, but the Doctor grabs her. How is he doing that? It's physically impossible. She's not actually there. And so we get this idea that, she's been looking around, she's been following the Doctor since she died. But the 11th Doctor has always seen her, but he didn't want to acknowledge her. He doesn't want to talk to her in this ghost dead format because he knew it will hurt him. He knew that he couldn't bear the idea that River is now this sort of ghost, just constantly haunting him, that the anguish of her death would be on his shoulders forever. And so they have this great moment. They finally get a really romantically passionate kiss, which I don't know why I was so cheerful at this. I think it's because the romance between the Doctor and River is supposed to be a big part of the series up to this point. However, most stories which deal specifically on the romance, like the wedding of River Song, the wedding, their marriage, their love for each other is mainly a plot point, the plot device, and never to do really with the characters. So to actually see them seemingly connect is something that was really refreshing, and something that I think the series and these two characters really needed, as the Doctor steps into his own timeline and starts basically reviving Clara, as he basically gives her this a memory of her own past, the leaf from the Bells of St. John and the Rings of Akten, and basically tries to get her away from the timeline, away from his personal timeline, before she can learn about one of his greatest, deepest, darkest secrets. To which she turns around and she sees a man, a silhouette of a man, as the Doctor claims he is him, but he's not the Doctor. He is one of the Doctor's biggest secrets. He's the one that broke the promise. He is the one who renowned the name of the Doctor. And what he did without choice. He did it in the name of peace and sanity, but he didn't do it in the name of the Doctor. As the story ends on a massive cliffhanger where it turns around and John Hurt gets introduced for the first time as the War Doctor. That gives me chills every time I see it. And yes, I know it would have been so much cooler if it was Christopher Eccleston returning for the series. However, as we've done in this Vlog series, in this marathon, we've actually been reintegrating John Hurt's Doctor into the larger canon, thanks to thanks retroactively to his Big Finish audio drama series, The Night of the Doctor, and as well as my fan-edited short story, No More. So with that out of the mind, it feels like this is actually a return retroactively, but however, of course not. So this is really just so cool. And legendary actor Sir John Hurt playing an incarnation of the Doctor is one of, if not the coolest thing you will ever see. And this story basically promises that this incarnation of the Doctor, we will be seeing more of him. We will be seeing what the Doctor was up to during the Time War. And that is so exciting. And that is the name of the Doctor. Overall, the story, in my opinion, this might be controversial, is actually the best of the 50th anniversary special. Technically, it counts as a celebration of the 50th anniversary, as it ties in many elements to I guess what we call of the Doctor trilogy. In my opinion, it is the best of those ones. There's some great moments, some great characterizations. The intelligence is actually has a really great threatening presence. Each actor brings their A game here, even if characters like Clara don't really get much to do in terms of revealing their characters. But everybody gets at least a moment to shine, and it's well structured, well paced. Some people might feel like it just sets up for the 50th anniversary. However, I actually prefer it to the 50th anniversary, and that opening sequence is like, as a fanboy, and that cliffhanger as a fan just got me so excited. So anyway, that is the name of the Doctor, as well as its prequel stories, Clarence and the Whispermen, and its sort of prequel, She Said, He Said. So, join me next time as the Doctor Who franchise celebrates its 50th year on televised series, as we get reintroduced to the 10th Doctor, and we get introduced to the War Doctor, formally as a massive space-time event occurs, which revolves around UNIT, Zygons, Daleks, the Time War, Queen Elizabeth, and so much more, and paintings as well. So join me next time for the biggest event in Doctor Who's history, the Day of the Doctor. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!